conscious admissions was inadvertently teaching students that the demographic group they fall in, because I don't hold it as a thing of identity at all. It's a demographic group to me, that they fall in matters more than their ability, their intellect, and their talent as a researcher in the particular field, and the amount of work that they want to put into it and all that kind of stuff. Those latter things are what should matter a heck of a lot more if you're talking about teaching the next generation of scientists. So, I'm back, finally. Ooh, pardon me for being a fair bit sick last week, but good to be back in this. And in the same vein, it's been a while since we talked about the affirmative action case, or shall we say the end of affirmative action, which I think you all know fairly well. Well, I line up on that here, but the fallout in all of this continues. As you know, June 29th, 2023 was when the ruling came down from the Supreme Court that basically declared affirmative action programs to be unconstitutional in violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, among several other things, including the prior tests of like Grutter and Bollinger and what have you, Grutter v. Bollinger and the like, in here. And of course, reasons for talking about this is, of course, is it plays with universities, and well, not plays with universities, but affects universities, and universities are where we train the next generation of scientists, which should be, about the minds of the brilliant people, not about said races or anything like that. But of course, the question mark that has happened with universities, of course, is that there are many of them that, of course, could still want to continue the practices of affirmative action, but have, shall we say, been trying to figure out how to get around said ruling. At which point there's a certain section here that of the ruling that needs to be reread to remind folks that it doesn't really matter what kind of thing you're trying to go about doing. If you are trying to, implement race-based or race-conscious admissions or sex-conscious admissions or things like that, you are still fundamentally violating the 14th Amendment according to the court. In which case, I want to go down to that section just to remind folks here, because it's right about here, actually. From the very end of the full opinion of the majority of Supreme Court Justices, June 29th, 2023. For the reasons provided above, the Harvard and UNC admissions programs cannot be reconciled with the guarantees of the Equal Protection Clause. Both programs lack sufficiently focused and measurable objectives warranting the use of race. The thing is, like just as a reminder, Grutter v. Bollinger, which was the last major affirmative action case before this one, in which Sandra Day O'Connor famously, when she wrote the opinion, said, sometime in the future we're going to have to get rid of this. It's effectively to which she said, we're letting it go for now because we do trust the universities that they don't want to do this either and all this other kind of stuff. But at the time, hey, it's just about diversity. Having diversity is what have you. Thing is, it's not really measurable. It's not measurable, and there's not any limiting principle with it. Which is one of the things they're pointing to with this. Go back and see the other video I did on the end of affirmative action. I actually spent some time reading the opinion in depth. Unavoidably employ race in a negative manner, involve racial stereotyping, and lack meaningful endpoints. There is no limiting principle to the way affirmative action is applied. We have never permitted admissions programs to work in that way, and we will not do so today. At the same time, as all parties agree, nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. Now, for a momentary pause, that line I just read, it was in the summary of the opinion too, but that line I just read is basically what has been thrown out there as, oh, it's the loophole in the ruling. This is how we can still consider race and make race-conscious admissions or the like of such nonsense. In other words, making race matter when you're training the next generation of scientists when it really shouldn't. here. So that's been the kind of thing where folks have gotten around to saying, hey, this is the way we can do this with, making sure we can get our race-based admissions. But what comes next is pretty much what pretty much what the court said, thinking of that response that, trying to get around, figure out the loopholes, figure out how we can still do what we want to do, even though the court says this is pretty much unconstitutionally illegal. But despite the dissent's assertion to the contrary, universities may not simply establish through application essays or other means the regime we hold unlawful today. A dissenting opinion is generally not the best source of legal advice on how to comply with the majority opinion. It's quite a dig. What cannot be done directly cannot be done indirectly. The Constitution deals with substance, not shadows, and the prohibition against racial discrimination is leveled at the thing, not the name. A benefit to a student who overcame racial discrimination, for example, must be tied to that student's courage and determination, or a benefit to a student whose heritage or culture motivated him or her to assume a leadership role or attain a particular goal must be tied to that student's unique ability to contribute to the university. In other words, the student must be treated based on his or her experiences as an individual, not on the basis of race. Many universities have for too long done just the opposite, and in doing so, they have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges bested, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Our constitutional history does not tolerate that choice. So, that is the reminder to basically say right here at the end, hey, universities, programs, things like that. No, you can't go do what we just told you is unlawful by some other means. You must weigh each student as an individual. And if they want to bring it up, they can bring it up. Now we come to do no harm, which I applaud. Dear medical schools, don't defy the Supreme Court. How will medical schools respond to the Supreme Court's recent ban on affirmative action? Essentially, every medical school practiced this race-based discrimination before the ruling. Now the man who took this issue to the Supreme Court is warning educational institutions to follow the law and do what's right. Edward Blum, who founded the organization at the heart of the case, Students for Fair Admissions, has sent letters to 150 colleges and universities, as reported in the Wall Street Journal. He wrote that it is, quote, incumbent on your institutions to ensure compliance with this decision starting with this admissions cycle. The letters went to the school's presidents, deans of admission, and general counsels. Medical schools have a choice to make. Some may try to get around the ruling by creating new race-based admissions options, such as scholarships that are restricted to people with certain skin colors. This approach violates the spirit of the ruling and, more importantly, the letter of the law. I would actually go further than what they're saying here. If somebody did go with that approach of scholarships restricted to certain skin colors, that would not violate the letter of the ruling. That would violate the letter of the ruling. It would not violate the spirit. It would violate the letter of the ruling and the letter of the law. Medical schools may also try other creative ways to continue discriminating, such as prioritizing students from gerrymandered zip codes. No, I can't do that either. This cannot be allowed. The best and only valid option is to treat every applicant equally, recruiting medical students based on merit. That's what medical schools are supposed to do, not least because it leads to the best possible physicians who will provide the best possible care. Kudos to Edward Blum for bringing the fight this far, and for continuing to fight until equality fully wins. Every American should hope this cause succeeds, and do no harm will do our part to ensure it happens. Indeed, I agree with the sentiment here very much so, in that not just for physicians, but for scientists, straight up, you should be recruiting based upon merit. You should not make a person's race matter in the selection of a person. That does not mean they can't talk about it. But you got to select based on the individual and their unique characteristics and experiences and the merit of their ability, their talent as a scientist. That kind of a thing. Where is the Wall Street Journal article? Oh, yeah. Affirmative action plaintiff warns of consequences if schools defy. Hold on. That doesn't need to. Why won't that pause? Okay. Well, I can't read that one right now because it's behind a paywall, but yep. So that's a good article to go read there, but it's linked off the Do No Harm. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that Steve McGuire here on Twitter, a good follow if you're not following already. Apparently I forgot to somehow or another I was not following him. Well, we fixed that problem. Sorry. But I noticed these things. He's actually been cataloging a bit the changes to application questions that have arisen as a result of the application. So here is Harvard. Harvard's new admission prompt on diversity. Harvard has long recognized the importance of enrolling a diverse student body. How will the life experiences that shape who you are today enable you to contribute to Harvard? So that's the new question. Apparently, this was the old question. Harvard has long recognized the importance of student body diversity of all kinds. That is just an awkward statement to begin with, so I'm glad they got rid of that at least. But anyway, we welcome you to write about distinctive aspects of your background, personal development, or intellectual interests you might bring to your Harvard classmates. That's just fascinating to me. Is like usually when I've written these kinds of applications in the past, although I'm quite, I'm not applying to college anymore, so maybe I'm old that way. But usually it's about, what do you hope to get out of it and how could Harvard how could a college of particular, best help you in achieving your career goals, not just what you bring to it. But anyway, but he goes on, Steve McGuire here goes on, things going on at other institutions. Stanford, third prompt, this changed right here. Please describe what aspects of your life experiences, interests, and character would help you make a distinctive contribution as an undergraduate to Stanford University. Which is what this used to be. Changed from this here. Tell us about something that is meaningful to you and why. University of Miami. Embraces diversity and inclusivity. Yeah. Supplemental essay prompt from University of Miami. Located within one of the most dynamic cities in the world, the University of Miami is a distinctive community with a variety of cultures, traditions, histories, languages, and backgrounds. The University of Miami is a values-based and purpose-driven post-secondary institution that embraces diversity and inclusivity in all its forms and strives to create a culture of belonging where every person feels valued and has an opportunity to contribute. Please describe how your unique experiences, challenges overcome, or skills acquired would contribute to our distinctive university community. From last year, this is Miami's question from last year. Official mascot is the ibis. I did not know that. Folklore maintains the native marsh bird. Okay. Considering your ability to control your own motivation and behavior, how have past experiences helped build your courage and resilience to persist in the face of academic and life challenges so that once these storms pass, you can emerge in continued pursuit of your goals? Dartmouth, it's not easy being green, was a frequent refrain of Kermit the Frog. It's an interesting take from Dartmouth to change it that way. How has difference been part of your life, and how have you embraced it as part of your identity and outlook? What if you haven't? This is the thing. What if you haven't? University of Richmond. Richmond welcomes students from various backgrounds, perspectives, and life experiences. What is at least one way you will contribute to our community that you have not already mentioned in your application? It's a fairly open-ended question. And that's the way it kind of should be with this, because, you can... This is the thing. This is where it's going to get tricky to figure out, hey, are you selecting based on race or what have you? Here's the thing, because this is open-ended. The students can talk about whatever the hell they want. It's the same kind of thing for all of these. Technically, the students can talk about whatever the heck they want, so long as they answer the question. It doesn't even have to be about their race. It can be. And so the students can volunteer it. The real question is on the back end. Are they going to be looking for things that signify a particular race so they can accept that person. If that's what they do with these questions, then they are blatantly violating the Supreme Court's ruling. As well as the Equal Protection Clause at that point, since that's the basis for the Supreme Court ruling. So that's going to be the question. So just having these here doesn't necessarily mean the university's doing anything wrong here. But again, some of these things I'm looking at it like, I don't know if any of it matters for the merit of the candidate. UVA. What about your background, perspective, or experience will serve as a source of strength for you or those around you at UVA? 2 of Columbia's prompts. I believe they already used the first, but the second one is new. Hallmark of Columbia experience is being able to learn and thrive in an equitable and inclusive community with a wide range of perspectives. Tell us about an aspect of your own perspective, viewpoint, or lived experience. Lived experience is stupid. And there's a reason I'm saying any experience by definition is something you've lived through. Lived experience is redundant unless there's such a thing as an unlived experience, of which there is not, because that would be an oxymoron. No. It would be an oxymoron. It would be a contradiction in the terms either way. It makes no sense. So lived experience is stupid. It's important to you and describe how it has shaped the way you would learn and contribute to Columbia's diverse and collaborative community. In college, university, students are often challenged in ways that they could not predict or anticipate. It is important to us, therefore, to understand the applicant's ability to navigate through adversity. Please describe a barrier or obstacle you have faced and discuss the personal qualities, skills, or insights you have developed as a result. Like, that's a sneaky thing, because of course you can always just say how you've been kept down by the system, right? They do that. That's not selecting a student based on merit. Brown University. Students entering Brown often find that making their home on College Hill naturally invites reflection on where they came from. Share how an aspect of growing up has inspired or challenged you, what unique contributions this might allow you to make to the Brown community. So this is really interesting that Steve here is collecting these slowly but surely. And there is actually quite a lot so far that he's cataloged, and I'm sure there's probably more because every university had to scramble to change things. This is probably not. If I had to take a wager, the timing of the Supreme Court ruling probably didn't make it have an effect for the incoming class coming in this fall. So this would really take effect probably for anybody who's coming in the spring, if they do admissions in the spring for that particular university, but most definitely for the fall of 24. I think just going off of memory of what I remember with admissions calendars and when most seniors are applying, most high school seniors are applying to college, it's usually earlier in the spring of the year for the fall admission. So I think a lot of this kind of stuff doesn't take effect really until fall 24 admissions. So it will be this coming spring, with the exception of, because there are some universities that do it, admissions in the spring. So there may be some who are coming in spring of 24, for example, when they start. But we shall see. Like I said, having these changes and changing these things to look like this doesn't necessarily mean that the university in question is flouting the ruling. Doesn't necessarily mean that. It's a question of what are they doing on the back end when they get the results of these. Because if they are using it and they're looking for specific things in a student's statement here to that would give them a hint that they are of this race or of that race, and then trying to get rid of them that way, then they are in blatant violation of the spirit and letter of the ruling. So it's going to be a fun thing to watch. But as I said, not sure, to be honest, how much the heck this matters. These kinds of questions matter when you're talking about training the next generation of scientists. Yeah, there may be some things that give you a sense of how well a student's going to adapt to the rigors of being a scientist, and particularly with the things about peer review and publications and what have you. It can be, at times, it can be really nasty. I'm not gonna lie. times it can be. Um, so that's just a question mark to me on this. But either way, I still am where I am with the ruling altogether, where I'm basically of the sentiment that race conscious admissions was inadvertently teaching students that that the demographic group they fall in, because I don't hold it as a thing of identity at all. It's a demographic group to me, that they fall in matters more than their ability, their intellect, and their talent as a researcher in the particular field, and the amount of work that they want to put into it and all that kind of stuff. Those latter things are what should matter a heck of a lot more if you're talking about teaching the next generation of scientists with universalism in mind. Here, that anybody can be a scientist if you are following the process of the scientific process, rather. If you can tell, I'm still somewhat of a bit of a brain frog because I've been sick and I'm just coming off of being sick, so some of this may not make as much sense. Um, but either way, I will be curious to see how it unfolds with the university here. But anyway, either way, what I can say to this is that your intellect, your talent, your ability, that matters a heck of a lot more as a scientist than anything else. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way out the door, comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian. Stay curious, everybody.